Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny. Welcome back to Sports on the Positive Tip with my partner, Kenny Squared. This is where we have conversations at the intersection of sports and faith. And this is our opening. Kenny, Rowdy Tellez and Michael A. Taylor both got DFA'd yesterday by the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, this is so weird to me. It's a few games before the season ends. I mean, why not just hold on to him for a few more days? But Rowdy Tellez, yes. So I see you're making the money sign. Rowdy Tellez was only four at bats away from getting a $200,000 contract bonus. Is there something fishy there, or do I even need to ask that?
I think he has a right to file a grievance.
Yeah.
Can I tell a very 2 second story? I
Yeah.
remember with the Yankees, CC Sabathia was a third of an inning away from hitting a innings pitch bonus in his last or second to last season. Um, he threw out a batter because the Rays kept hitting the Yankees. He threw out one of the Rays hitters, gets ejected. The
I
Yankees
remember
still
that.
pay him the bonus anyway.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you just got to take care of your players like that. It's a drop in the bucket for these owners. Come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, I remember that. Now they're gonna say Rowdy Tellez was terrible. He only batted 116 here in September, and he's a he's a he's kind of a version of Daniel Vogelback, but with a little more power. But I didn't think that was right. I mean, come on, Now last night the Padres, Kenny, ended the game with the Dodgers. I know I didn't send you the link, but I told you to go find it. It was easy to find, so I know you probably watched it. It's not just that they ended it with a triple play, and they had runners on first and second, nobody out, and Shohei was on deck. But that brings them only within two games of the Dodgers. So, but my question to you is, when was the last time a game ended on a triple play?
I think I saw this. Wasn't it the Yankees?
No,
Is it the
you're in the
Phillies?
right city.
Oh, it's the Mets?
Yes. And I want to say you might have even been watching that game with me. It was a Sunday afternoon. It was in August. Jerry Manuel was the manager. They were trying to make a move in 2009, late August 2009. And the Mets, the Phillies were leading 9-7. Mets got runners on first and second, and the runners took off. They, were trying to do a double steal. Jeff Francoeur hits a shot, but it's right to second base where the second baseman is at because he's going to cover for the double play. So he catches it, he steps on second, and he tags the other runner. And it's not just a triple play, it's an unassisted triple play to end the game, kill the rally. And the guy's name was Eric Brunlett, who didn't last long in the majors. So if you haven't heard his name, he wasn't a big player. But that was the last time a game ended on a triple play.
Wow.
Yeah. All right, we got a lot to get to. Damar Hamlin. You've got some breaking news. Brett Favre, we're going to talk a little bit about. You ready to get this going?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. This episode of Sports on the Positive Tip is brought to you by the Tavern Coffee House. Attention, coffee lovers. Are you craving the perfect cup of coffee to start your day? Well, look no further than the Tavern Coffee House. It's located at 12302 Buckeye Road in Cleveland, Ohio. You can also check them out and order your coffee at thetaverncoffee.com. Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny and
Kenny Square.
with the Sports on the Positive Tip podcast. Kenny, it's September 25th. And I don't know, man. I always struggle with what's the best time of year. This is fun. This is a lot of fun. We've got football really heating up. The pennant races. I tell you what, whoever came up with these wild cards, the extra wild cards, they knew what they were doing, man. This is a lot of fun, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Now, I guess we'll start with football, but you have some breaking baseball news. Tell us about it.
Yeah, this isn't like that breaking, but it did happen today and it is kind of urgent-ish. So Nestor Cortez was scheduled to start today, which would have been kind of a cool bookend. He was opening day starter. The Yankees have a chance to clinch the division tonight. Um, but he now is going for an MRI on his left elbow. which is always scary for a pitcher. Um, Cody Poteet is expected to start, and yeah, I guess we're just going to be waiting the results. So
Yeah. When did he make it back into the starting rotation?
he had made a start. I think his last appearance was a start.
Yeah.
The Yankees have kind of done like the de facto six-man rotation a
Right.
little bit.
Right.
Recently, they've moved Marcus Stroman to the bullpen, which
Yeah.
now, honestly, with the playoffs coming and like you're not going to need another rotation at this point, they'll
Yeah.
probably keep it that way.
Yeah.
But it could be a huge loss because Nestor was excellent out of the pen. Um, let's
And
see.
he
Yeah,
moaned about it, and he's done his job there.
yeah. He did make his start the last time. It was against Seattle. He got the no decision because they wanted extra innings, but he went six shutout, four hits, six strikeouts, three walks. Like he did a shot. Since that getting moved to the bullpen, he's given up 1 run in 15 innings. So
Yeah. You know, they need him. And listen, I think that the Yankees will get to the World Series. We could get to our picks if we have any picks, but everything's not settled in yet. But the Yankees would definitely be my pick to come out of the American League. I only think that your team could probably beat them out of all the teams that looks like they're going to be in. Although who knows what to expect from the Guardians this time around, you know? But
Yeah, I noticed it. I see it. I
ho
noticed.
hopefully hopefully Cortez will be back and sooner rather than later. That is something, very, very small. Um, do you want to go baseball or football? Which one do you want to start with?
up to you, man.
Okay. All right. Well, why don't we start football? Because it was another interesting week. Week 3 is in the books. And man, week 4 for you especially starts tomorrow night. Let's start with the Giants Browns. And then we're gonna have you go through your chart in just a bit. But let's go with Giants Browns. I mean, I watched a good chunk of that game. It was a very entertaining game, actually, I thought. And I'm liking some of the playmakers that the Giants now have, particularly Malik Neighbors. I think you got a budding star there. Jones was much better. Watson, it is funny, Kenny. I didn't think he played bad at all, but was he great? No. And Amari Cooper, 10 years now in the league, he's still really, really good. The Browns defense I thought was good enough that they should have won that game. What was the feeling there in Cleveland? I know you're not elated. I think you're cautiously optimistic, is my guess. But I'll let you tell us that. But what's the feeling there in Cleveland, and how are you feeling about your New York Football Giants?
I'm still. I'm not believing it yet. I have to see how they play on Friday or not Friday. Wow, Thursday.
Yeah,
Uh,
they play
uh,
tomorrow.
yeah, I don't think I'm watching it though. I'd rather watch the Yankees. I'm not gonna lie.
Uh, well, you might be catching a Dallas team, at a good time because while they had a good run there in the fourth quarter, but most of that game they really didn't play well. You might be catching Dallas at the right time.
Yeah, either that or the wrong time because they might be a little angry and blitz them. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't know. I I'll say this. I really do like Malik Neighbors. I think that he seems to be the right pick. Um, I really think that he can be that guy, but
yeah,
I don't know. I I will say it's from a Cleveland perspective, everyone's done with Deshaun Watson again.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
This is what I want to know. What's the feeling like there? Done with Deshaun Watson and what else? I questioned a couple of Stepanski's calls there too, but I think he's got some good karma there with the fans. But what's the real feeling like there in Cleveland now?
I mean, I feel like it's back at week one where everyone's like, why is this guy our quarterback? And at least what's his face? At least Baker didn't play well because I think it would still be like the outrage because he had an awful game.
Yeah.
But oh man, I don't it just kind of seems like the defense is still pretty good. I know they had a couple of calls, but like I don't know. It just
So Ken, uh, I was asking you about what the feeling is there. You said right away that it's hostile right now on Watson. What's the feeling right there? And then I got a question for you about Jameis Winston.
yeah, it just like I feel like Deshaun Watson didn't play poorly, but he also didn't play that great.
Yeah.
I mean, 21 of 37, that's decent. 196 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Like most days, that's not going to lose you a game, but also they only scored 15 points. Um, I don't know. It just, I think what makes it so hard too is the contract. Because, like, I mean, I've compared the Browns and the Giants a lot in terms of having quarterbacks that they don't really believe in, hence signing Jameis Winston, hence signing Drew Lock.
Yeah.
Um, but yet, like, the Giants are in a much better situation than the Browns because after this year, if the Giants are still like, I don't know about that,
You can move
then
on. Yeah.
they can move on. The
Yeah.
Browns are stuck. So
Yeah.
unless they can figure out to get out of this contract in some way, if like this new case ends up ending, like gives them the cause to terminate. I don't know if it will, but
Yeah. I mean, you haven't heard much over the last week or so. That sort of calmed down, but it could just be they're investigating it. I was puzzled. I texted you this. I was puzzled at the way they're using Jameis Winston for these short runs because Deshaun Watson, that used to be a huge strength of his to be able to run. And don't get me wrong, I think it's Patrick Mahomes and everybody else in terms of best quarterback in the league. But I thought that a few years ago when he was with Houston, he was as close to Watson as anyone in terms of being able to make a play outside of the pocket and be able to run. Why would they be using Winston just to get, short yardage or whatever?
I don't know. To me, like I would do more packages centered around Winston
Yeah,
passing.
right.
Um, but I don't know. It could also be a they're waiting for Nick Chubb to get back. Um, which I haven't heard that much on him.
No,
Actually, he
no,
was
nothing. I was
trending
surprised he
on
wasn't
Twitter.
playing.
So
Yeah.
yeah, he's on IR still, so
Oh, he
he's
is.
not
Okay.
eligible until next year or
Okay.
next week.
Okay.
So like, there's a chance that he might be back in a couple weeks.
So you have to miss
I
four
don't
games.
know.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but also like he is still coming back from a lot of major surgery.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but the Browns are also kind of one of those teams that are in a tough like it's not. I know it's early, so it's not like a must win, and the Browns aren't like they weren't intended to be like Super Bowl or playoff contenders. But like you start out 1-3 with losses to the Raiders and the Giants, like Browns fans they'll be loyal, but they'll be sad.
Uh, yeah, I agree. Going back to Winston for a second, could it be they're just keeping him warm? That's a way of getting him into the games.
Yeah, and to me, if you want to keep them warm, play them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
like how now I'm not Kevin Stefanski, but how I would play this week. Uh, give Deshaun the first half. And if it's not looking good, give Jameis the second half.
Hmm.
Um, the worst that can happen is that Jameis tanks and you go back to Deshaun Watson. I don't think
Yeah.
it's going to hurt his ego. I don't think anything at this point can hurt that guy's ego. So,
Yeah. Jameis Winston is so interesting because he might, and I know we'll get to your tier in a second, he might fall into because Jameis Winston has never been bad. He's always been just good, but the expectations for him, coming out of college. I mean, because he had such a great college career, was way, way, way high, and he certainly hasn't fulfilled those expectations. But if you look around and you look at now Geno Smith, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, I mean, this could be the niche and the chance that, Winston gets where his career could take off because he's very quickly now he's a veteran. And now this is, I think, his third team. And so, but it's looming. The Watson thing, the contract, the albatross is looming, and I probably make too much out of this. I noticed at the end of the game, everybody's going out, shaking hands. No matter what kind of loss it is, football especially, they always seek out each other. Watson, he throws a towel over his head like he always does, and he walks like straight to the locker room, doesn't shake hands with anybody, at least from what I saw. Um, and maybe Winston is the spark and fire that that team needs. It's still early, right? 1-2 is not the same as 0-3. I mean, they're better off than the Jaguars, than the Bengals, than several other teams right now, you know. But I do think you're right. I think that they're gonna have to make a move relatively fast. Um, we didn't get a chance to talk about the Jets win over the Patriots. I thought it's uplifting. The Jets now 2-1. So I I I thought that it was a pretty complete game by the team. And again, I don't want to say New England is really bad. They didn't seem to be bad the first couple of games of the year, but I thought the Jets defense finally lived up to their press clippings, and it was good to see Aaron Rodgers have a pretty complete game. And so with him there's always a little bit of drama, him and Robert Saleh, he pushes him away. I didn't get, he explained that away, says he loves him. Whatever. There's always going to be a little bit of drama surrounding Rodgers. What did you think?
As far as the hug goes, I think it's related to marriage and marriage by convenience. Um, I think he would rather want basically anyone there, but winning cures all. So
Yeah.
it would be a much bigger story if the Jets lost, especially if
Yeah.
they lost the Patriots.
Oh, I agree. I agree. All right, let's go to your tier. I thought you did a great job on this and you still are. So let hit it up,
All right, so just full disclosure, I did change it a little bit from when we talked.
right?
So yeah, I'll start at the bottom again. So once again, this is week 3. So this isn't like a power ranking. This is what I think the fans are feeling after the game. So bottom tier, preseason, postseason, or college. These teams are more worried about NBA preseason, MLB postseason, or college football.
Right.
So like the fans at this point probably a little bit checked out. If the Raiders are there, I know they have a win, but like I don't know. I feel like especially you'll see this probably with a lot of the 1-3 teams, like teams that looked like, oh, could we be a little fun and upset a bunch of teams are back to where we kind of thought they would. Raiders are also weird because Antonio Pierce kind of didn't commit to a starter. So that's a whole thing. So yeah.
Yeah.
Next is the Patriots.
Okay, so
Uh
we dropped the wow. All right. I want to come back and ask you a few questions about the Raiders, but go ahead.
yeah. Patriots, I mean, I think most Patriot fans kind of knew they were going to be bad. They're looking forward to the Celtics raising banner 18. So um
Okay.
yeah, the Titans I think are also there. The Titans,
Yeah.
it's been a rough year, and now you're looking at okay, so who are we drafted number 1 overall, number 2, 3 overall? Because they're probably drafting a quarterback would be my guess.
Especially after
Uh,
watching Derrick Henry run for 150 something yards.
yeah,
Yeah.
they
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know what they're doing there. And
Yeah.
last Jacksonville. Um,
Wow.
I
Okay.
don't know. I talked about this last week, but that 2021 quarterback draft class. You have Trevor Lawrence, who now has put up similar numbers to Daniel Jones. Um, which like if you look side by side, I mean, I can send it to you afterwards. I saw a couple where it's like, yep, that's crazy.
I am shocked at that. I'm not shocked that you put him there. I'm just shocked at Trevor Jones, and it's been a bit for him. It's just like second half of last year, and now these first three games. Trevor Lawrence rather. So I'm shocked. Um,
Uh, Trevor Jones fits though. I mean,
Trevor
that's how he's played.
Jones.
Um, but then the rest of those guys, Zach Wilson, gone from the team that drafted him. Trey Lance, gone from the team that drafted him. Justin Fields, he might be the best guy from that draft. And
Yeah.
then, of course, Mac Jones, that's going to be interesting. But I think the seat's going to get very hot for Doug Peterson. And not just him, and this might be a tier next week, depending on how things go. Teams that are very quick to fire their head coach because they want Bill Belichick. I wouldn't be
Wow.
surprised if a team is like,
Yeah.
it's like usually we talk about Black Monday, but that could come quicker for a team that wants to kind of jump the gun to try to get Bill Belichick in there. So
Yeah.
that's the bottom tier.
Quick side note, then I have a question for you. Quick side note is that I just randomly had some free time on Monday and I saw Belichick on the Pat McAfee show. McAfee's grown on me. I think I told you before he wasn't my cup of tea, but he's actually very good. He's a little bit more tame because he was on ESPN, but he knows his stuff. But Belichick was surprisingly engaging. I was like, who is this? He was actually talking. I want to go back to the Raiders for a second because that's one of your guys, one of your heroes, Antonio Pierce. But the one thing I kind of thought of him even when he was a player and even moments as an interim coach, he just says what's on his mind. God bless him. But oh my gosh, I'm not so sure it's the best idea in week 3 to be really laying into your team in front of the press. I think it's okay to do that behind closed doors. But he hinted that some of his players quit on him. I mean, he said that uh this is probably not the direct quote, but he said that yeah, some of those guys made business decisions and we're going to make business decisions going forward. I think he was talking about Devontae Adams, man. Because he doesn't want to be there, and he's hinting that they quit on him so that he's saying now they are gonna make some moves and maybe bench a few guys. What did you think about that?
I would agree. I think it's too early to make a public thing like that,
Yeah.
unless you're looking to try to trade Devontae Adams before the trade deadline. I mean,
Well, yeah.
how long has he been connected with the Jets?
Yeah. Yeah.
And honestly, that's a great fit for him anyway, because Aaron Rodgers and the Jets could use another top flight wide receiver. That makes things very interesting.
Listen, last thing, I want you to go to your next tier. Devontae Adams is a star, and Devontae Adams can still play. And I think great coaches, again, it's not fair. He's only 3 games in and a few games from last year. But I think great coaches figure out how to get star players on their sides instead of picking a feud with him. You know what I mean? Because that all the writers were right away. If Devontae Adams had been sitting in that room, they'd have looked right at him, because that's who he was talking about. I mean, come on. So anyway, that's a really good job on that tier. What's your next one?
All right, next one. We're in serious trouble. Now, obviously, they're not like completely checked out,
Yes.
but like, man, things are not looking good. Number one, there's the Bengals. There are 6 teams since 1990 that started out 0-3 and made the playoffs. It's going to get late really, really quick for Cincinnati. Um, Joe Burrow, believe, is like 1-4 against the Browns. He has an awful record against the Ravens. Like, he doesn't do well in division. And also now you're 3 games back of the division leader. So even if you pull a win against the Steelers at some point, it's not going to help. Browns we talked about, so I'm not going to belabor that. The Cowboys, I think their season kind of lies in the balance on Thursday. I know
Wow.
that's dramatic to say, but if they go 1-3, imagine the media frenzy on Friday morning, saying that the Cowboys are done. Jerry Jones is going to have a lot of pressure to make a change at head coach, because they can't get rid of Dak. They're not going to get rid of CeeDee Lamb. Both those guys got paid. The only other thing that you can really do to shake up this team would be to trade Micah Parsons, which would be, to me, a mistake. So,
Oh yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so yeah, and also if they lose to the Giants in division to a team that wasn't supposed to be good, and you're 1-3 and you're in last place in the division, it's not going to look good. So, I think that's a big game for them. The Colts are also in serious trouble.
Yeah.
Anthony Richardson has had some great throws and had some head scratching throws, so I don't
Yeah.
know what to do there.
Yeah.
But The Rams I also have here after talking with you. It does make sense. They did pull out the win against San Francisco. I think
Yeah.
that they can. The biggest thing though is that they keep getting guys injured for a long time, and that might like it might be a long season for them. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then last Miami. I know there was high expectations for them, but Tua's hurt. Skylar Thompson has not looked the part, and also he got hurt. So yeah,
Yeah. Um, I think Miami should make a few calls and get a quarterback. I mean, they probably won't do it. But you've got Trey Lance sitting there, and he showed some promise, right? He's not, unless Dak gets hurt, he's not going to play, but he's also would be insurance if Dak does get hurt. But there's got to be somebody sitting out there that they can call on because they put so much talent on that team, but it's Tua that made it go. So the season can get away from them really quickly. Um, yeah, that was a good list. I don't think I have any questions. I think the Bengals was interesting that you put them in that one, but I would assume that you feel that they just have more talent than the Jaguars do.
yeah, I would say that I think that they do.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it's tough. So this is from the Yankees Twitter 3 minutes ago.
Oh, here we
Um,
go.
so Nestor Cortez has been placed on the 15-day injured list,
Oh,
retroactive to 9/22 with a left elbow flexor strain.
oh,
I don't know if that's I don't know how official that is. So they have recalled Cody Poteet, but he is not starting tonight. Marcus Stroman will be starting tonight.
okay. Yeah. Boy, Strowman has fell off in the second half. Hopefully, he catches some lightning tonight. All right, what's your next tier?
All righty. Sorry, I gotta pull it back up. All right. This next tier, it could be worse. This is a whole gamut of teams where like you're looking at your season and people might say something about, well, what about this or what about that? But you're like, well, it could be worse. We could be one of the teams below us. So the Arizona Cardinals, I think they've shown signs, but they could definitely say it could be worse. Um, the Falcons could easily be 0-3. They're 1-2.
Yeah.
Um, they had an awful call go against them on
Yes.
Sunday night.
Yeah.
Like you could argue that they could be 2-1. You could argue that they could be 0-3, but it definitely could be worse than it is.
Yeah.
Baltimore. I think Baltimore kind of got on the right track by beating up on Dallas. Scary towards the end there, but I think that they're looking like, okay, so we lost to Kansas City and we literally lost by like inches.
Yeah.
We beat Dallas and then we had a bad weekend there. Like it could definitely be worse than it is.
Definitely. Yeah.
Um,
Agree.
I think the Bears are in that list. Caleb Williams has looked okay. And I know this is the softer part of their schedule and all, but I think it could definitely be a lot worse. Caleb Williams has thrown a touchdown. He's starting to kind of feel like you're getting some momentum. We'll see.
Yeah.
Denver, it could definitely be worse. Bo Nix has kind of probably looked like the best quarterback of the rookie class so far. So I think you're looking at it like, okay, like maybe we got something there.
I think
The
they do.
49ers,
Yeah.
49ers, they're also a weird team. Um, I heard it said before, like they kind of have like the weird vibes going on.
Really?
Um,
Huh.
like the whole like Brandon Ayuk long holdout situation, Trent Williams in there too. Um, I think the biggest thing you worry about is the Super Bowl hangover and if that's going to be a thing. But
Yeah.
once again, it could be worse. They could be the Rams. They could
Yeah.
have a bunch of injuries. Like they can recover from it. The
Yeah.
last two are kind of the teams that were on the bottom tier and they've moved up, the Giants and the Panthers. I mean, the Giants could definitely say it could be worse.
Yeah.
They have a kicker, they could be 2-1 right
Yeah.
now. And then the Panthers, the thing that could be a lot worse is now you're not really sure what you're doing at quarterback. Literally, I had no idea Andy Dalton was still in the league until they said that he was starting. And it
He's
was
been
great. And he's
underrated.
also
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but and also he's undefeated against the Raiders, which is like the most bizarre stat ever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those are the it could be worse teams.
Yeah. No, I like that. I'll stay with Andy Dalton for a second because I'm drawing a blank on who he replaced in Cincinnati. but did you know that he's been a quarterback for 16 years? He's been in the league. Um, but there was a USC hot
It's
shot.
not Bradford, right?
No,
No.
it was a USC player that he replaced, a USC quarterback.
Carson Palmer.
Carson Palmer. Yes, yes. Carson Palmer was actually a good announcer now. Um, it was Carson Palmer who just never fulfilled his potential. And Dalton was kind of the underdog that came out of nowhere and did well. I like Dalton. I think listen, let him play, let Young sit and watch and let him get a little bit bigger. I think Young will still be good, but I think Carolina will win some games this year. I think with Dalton, that's what he does. I mean, he hasn't been a terrible quarterback. That was a really, really good tier. I love that all of it. All right, what's your next one?
All right, next here is the we're really good this year. Um, like some of these teams, it's a very pleasant surprise. Some of these teams, they had a couple, like they've had moments where they're like, I don't know, but I think we're pretty good. Um, I'll start with the 2-3-0 teams here, the Vikings and the Steelers. Are I don't know what the deal is with your boy there, Sam Darnold. I think we're starting to emerge into a new era where because like we've talked about this before, if you're like a number one, two, three overall pick and you fail in your first spot, it used to be like nearly impossible to come back from that. But
Right.
now with the emergence of Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, um, and then there's probably a few others out there. Justin Fields,
Oh
for
yeah.
instance, with the
Yeah.
Steelers.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's showing that you have another opportunity.
Yeah.
Um, and also, like, I'm going to say this now, and I could be completely wrong in a few weeks, but the Vikings look like maybe they're that worst to first team that no one saw coming. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, they've got a very, very good coach. I fell in love with him watching that quarterback docuseries with Kirk Cousins and the way they interacted and the way he interacted with the team. He's a good coach, and we're seeing that now. I mean, Donald was making some plays that I'm like, oh my gosh. We saw flashes of that with the Jets, but man, oh man, now, and he's already now 7 years in the league, you know?
yeah.
Huh.
Who did I see? He's younger than a lot than you'd like realize. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
he's kind of like now. I'm not comparing the two, but it's like you forget how young Juan Soto is.
Right.
That
Yeah. Yeah.
like Austin Wells, who will probably be a finalist for Rookie of the Year, is older than Juan Soto.
Yeah. That's great.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
anyhow, so the Steelers, I mean, the Steelers have had a great defense. They're the last team that people thought would be leading the division after 3 games, but here they are. Justin Fields is making it very, very hard for Russell Wilson to win back his job that I don't think he ever really had in the first place. But uh, it's just crazy
Yeah.
how the Steelers like even if they fall off a little bit, they're looking at possibly finishing over 500 again under Mike Tomlin, which would be incredible.
Amazing.
This everyone's like, this will be the year, this will be the year, and they always do it.
Amazing.
Next is Green Bay Packers. I mean, once Jordan Love went down, you're like, oh well, this team is gonna have a rough year. And yet here they are at 2-1. They're thinking like, oh, like we're really good, and we
Yeah.
also will have Jordan Love coming back.
Yep. Yeah.
Um, next is the Bucks. I think the Bucks have had a good year. Obviously, a bad week last week, but I think overall they're like, okay, yeah, I think we're pretty good. Everyone kept saying Atlanta was going to win the division, but here we are. I think right next to them is the Saints. I
Yeah.
I can't tell if the Saints are actually good, but I think Saint fans are gonna be like, yeah, we're really good. We scored 40 twice this year. So there
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah.
Your Jets are there too. Aaron Rodgers is looking stronger and stronger each week. I know the Patriots aren't projected to be a good team, but the Jets beating the Patriots, it's something that hadn't happened in a long time, aside from
Yeah.
like that one time last year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I think that's a big win for them. Last I have there, the Commanders. Jaden Daniels had one of the best rookie quarterback performances ever.
What a game that was.
Um,
Yeah.
they now back-to-back weeks. Last week they were in a game where they didn't score a touchdown. They allowed three and still won in regulation.
Yeah.
Now they win a game where there wasn't a single turnover or punt. So they're doing stuff there.
Yeah. What a game that was. That last throw was incredible. I mean, because he got nailed as soon as he threw it, but he dropped it right in there. I mean, I was so impressed with him. Him and Bo Nix, I think, might be the best out of this class so far. You know, but did I miss it? Is there another tier? Where do you have the Chargers? Did I miss them?
I haven't had them yet. I have one more tier. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah,
I'll
go ahead.
Last year, I could see us hoisting a Lombardi. These are the teams like the teams that are like true Super Bowl contenders, and like they actually have felt that way from start to finish. The Chiefs are there. We don't have to say much about them. The Bills have looked excellent this
Yeah.
year, and
Yeah.
also very quietly excellent.
Yeah.
The Eagles, I know the Eagles could be 1-2 right now, but they aren't. Um, the Seahawks also very quietly 3-0. Shout out to Geno Smith there. The Lions, I know the Lions kind of had a hiccup last week or this past week, but I mean, I think people still believe in them. Same with the Chargers. The Chargers can really make a big statement this week against the Chiefs. Um, and last, the Texans. I know the Texans got demolished by Minnesota, but
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that Texan fans are like that shaken up by it. So there we
No.
go.
So yeah. No, that's great. The only thing I'm thinking with the Chargers, that was why I asked you about them because Herbert got hurt during that game, and I think they're going to sit him out this week so that he gets 2 weeks rest because then they have their bye. Um, so if he's not playing against the Chiefs, I'm not sure that they can beat the Chiefs, but we'll see. Their backup is the guy who started for Washington the last couple of years, Heineke. Did I pronounce
Oh
his name
yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah. He's their backup. So I mean, they've got a good backup. So we'll see. But I think that's prudent though, to rest him this week, and then he gets 2 weeks off, and then you bring him back. But they might be 2-2 going into their bye. Kenny, that's a solid list. I love it. Hopefully the audience is liking it also. We'll keep, I'm gonna ask you to keep doing that throughout the season because I think it keeps us right there. All right, a quick game of what are you watching? And you admitted on national television here that you're not going to be watching the Giants in Dallas, that you might watch the when those games are on Amazon, that's the only thing. A commercial comes on, you can't really turn because then you got to come all the way out of the app and then go to something else. But you're gonna be so you can't go back and forth with the Yankees. So, but you're gonna be more into the Yankees. We'll see. All right, let's see what we got. I think there's another double header or so. It's not really a double header, that Monday night game. But I do like the way they do that because very quickly I was like, okay, this Buffalo game is done. I'm gonna just watch Washington and Cincy. Let's see. Best matchups here at 1 o'clock. How about Minnesota Green Bay at 1 o'clock? That should be really good. The Rams at the Bears is interesting. The Jets get Denver, where Denver's on the rise, as you just said. That should be very interesting. Indy's going to be desperate. They get the Steelers at 1 o'clock. Um, let's see. Jacksonville at Houston at 1 o'clock should be interesting as well. It's hard for me to see Jacksonville going 0-4, but Houston is very, very good. I know it was a blip this past week. Um, but at 4 o'clock, I think the main game at 4 o'clock is KC at the LA Chargers. So I think that's your big national game at 4 o'clock. But you got a great Sunday night matchup. You've got Buffalo at Baltimore. Um, so what are you watching Sunday?
Um, well, I won't be seeing KC against the Chargers because the Browns are at Vegas at the
The
same
Browns
time.
are at
So,
Vegas. Yeah, yeah. It's
um,
not as good a matchup, but I'm sure like a good portion of the country will get that game.
but I think a fun sneaky matchup is the Rams and the Bears.
Rams Bears
Um,
is good. Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah.
so
Absolutely.
I That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
But I think yeah, the big one definitely is Buffalo at Baltimore
Yeah.
because also like um like Baltimore goes to 4-0, even if the Chiefs go to 4-0, they'll get a lot more noise and attention.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, if that happens and Baltimore starts out 1-3, things are going to get very interesting very quickly in Baltimore.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Monday night, Tennessee at Miami, and then you've got Seattle at Detroit. Really, really nice matchup there. And yes, I'll be tuning in, I think, to that at 8:15, you know. It's not really a doubleheader, it's just two games that are on just about the same time. It's just a 45-minute difference, you know. Um, all right. Anything else with football? Brett Favre, I think, was the one quick thing I wanted to talk about. Diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. I think a surprise for everyone. But Kenny, were you surprised also? It's like a mixed reaction, you know. His legacy has taken a hit over these last few years. And this is a side note that the writer that broke that welfare story in Mississippi um could wind up in jail because the is it the mayor of that
Mm.
town or the governor has continued to go after her and she has to reveal her sources, which you know writers are very, very reluctant. There's a lot of writers that'll go to jail before they do that. And because she's being sued for defamation of character. And you know, him and Favre never said the story wasn't true. He just said he didn't know. But apparently the governor said, you know, I knew and this wasn't true. But what did you think when you heard about Favre and now you're kind of seeing a little bit of a mixed reaction? I thought he was beloved, but I guess between what he did with the Jets reporter and this, and Aaron Rodgers said that he wasn't very nice to him when he first started. What did you think?
Yeah, I don't think he's. I think his legacy is definitely taking a hit.
Yeah,
Because of this whole fraud thing, a lot of people are kind of like whatever.
yeah,
A good example. So a lot of my stuff I see on Bleacher Report, and sometimes it's interesting to read the comments, but you can also tell when comments go really, really south when Bleacher Report turns them off, and they
yeah,
turned it off for his. So like, I mean, they'll do it for a
yeah,
lot of the more like racially charged stuff. So like any notifications on Tyreek Hill's arrest,
yeah,
um, more like serious things like a Damar Hamlin situation. I guess
yeah,
we could say shout out to him.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but I mean, first it is like it's always bad when someone gets diagnosed with any type of disease.
Of course, yes,
Um, but it is like really I don't know. It's just really hard to see. And I think it does kind of confirm when people like I don't think anyone's directly said, "Oh well, good riddance, you're crazy." But I think a lot of people are kind of thinking that,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that's hard.
It
Um,
is. Yeah, yeah,
and yeah, like that's a I think kind of going back to the whole lawsuit thing, like reporting that someone has anything unless it's said by that person, it's considered a pretty bad HIPAA violation. I remember
yeah, yeah,
when I
yeah,
worked at CVS of all places, like
yeah,
they were very serious about that.
yeah,
And I mean, when I worked at any bank, like
yeah,
obviously you don't want people's account numbers or names or balances
yeah,
out there. So like,
yeah,
because you don't want like, oh, like random Joe and he really has like $500,000 in the bank. Like
yeah,
you're not supposed to have
yeah.
that out.
Favre hasn't tried to restore his reputation. I'm not sure that he really cares that much
Nah.
about that. I mean, he's one of the best quarterbacks of all time. But I think a lot of people, I'm not sure I'm one of them. I think that I believe him when he said he didn't know because he definitely would have known if he did know, he knows it's got to be a PR nightmare, you know, for him. I totally believed what he did with that reporter because that story came and went pretty quick because you know and the commissioner at the time obviously believed it too. Um, so I don't know. I don't know. Listen, yeah. So I right before I turned from the Buffalo game was when Damar Hamlin got the interception. And I was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe that was him. And then it was like people were reluctant to tackle him. You know, one guy tackled him real high and just threw him down, you know, one of the offensive linemen. But what a moment, right? I mean, just amazing this fully comeback. And it just shows when God restores you, it's better than you were before, and God has definitely restored him. I mean, it was just an amazing moment.
Yeah. And it definitely is like a good storybook type of ending for him. I know like his career isn't over,
Right. Yeah.
but being able to catch an interception on Monday Night Football,
No, yep. I was gonna say Monday night.
like it's definitely like a full circle moment, and
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
really cool to see. I
Yeah.
know, unfortunately for Trevor Lawrence, it was
Yeah. Yeah.
another bad throw, but
And
it
since
is
he
what it
was
is.
playing, and in Cincinnati, just an amazing moment. All right, you ready to jump to baseball?
Yeah, let's do it.
Lots to hit on there. First, I mean, the Guardians have, punched their ticket. I'm using cliches here. The Astros have punched their ticket. The Yankees are in. Orioles are in. Orioles are not catching the Yankees. I'm comfortable saying the Yankees will be the division champs. Um, Milwaukee is obviously in. The Dodgers and Padres are both in, but do you think the Padres have a shot here at tying? And they own the tiebreaker. So if they tie the Dodgers, remember they kicked off the year, it seems like a long time ago, right? In Korea. Um, do you think they have a shot to sweep the Dodgers here and tie for that division? And if they tie for the division, and if they hold through the weekend, they're the champs because they own the tiebreaker. What do you think's going to happen there?
I'm gonna say talk to me after tonight.
Okay.
Because well, and it's a great matchup. Flaherty against Cease. Uh, but I think if they win tonight, they'll win tomorrow,
Yeah.
and they'll just
Yeah.
kind of roll with it.
Can you
Uh,
imagine if after this year the that they've had that the Dodgers would be in the wild card?
oh man.
I couldn't imagine that, you know. But these
Well,
Padres, the Mets have the best record since June 1st, but the Padres have been before that just got really hot and have just stayed consistent. Um, it's just hard to picture, right? That the Dodgers might be in the wild card. Um, let's talk about those wild card races though, because a couple of really, really amazing things are happening. So let's go back to the American League for a second. The Detroit Tigers, man. I mean, I dare anybody to name like five players on the Tigers. They was sellers at the deadline. They've gotten hot at the right time. They're 9 games over 500, but also coupled with that is that the Royals and the Twins have just been awful. I mean, the Twins lost last night to the Marlins. The Royals won, I think. I think they won 1-0 with the Nationals. They broke a
yeah,
7 game losing streak. You
yeah.
know, so that's let the Tigers in right now. If the season ends, the Tigers are in the playoffs. Talk to me about this American League wild card race, and I don't think Seattle is gonna get in. I know they're only 2 games back or 2.5 out. I think they're done. With that loss last night, I think if they had won last night, they had a shot to get in it. But losing to the Astros last night, I think they're out. What's your thoughts on this American League race?
Back on August 12th, the Detroit Tigers had a 0.2% chance of making the playoffs. Now they're at
Wow.
about 81%.
Wow.
Um,
Amazing.
because it is looking like we're so yeah, you had mentioned it. So the Yankees are right now the 1 seed. If they win tonight, they're done. Marcus Stroman, hopefully, like give us five. Cody Poteet, give us 3, and uh Luke Weaver end the game for us, so we can celebrate and
Yeah.
just have it out so that we don't even have to worry about it over the weekend.
Right.
Um, and also you don't want to wake up the Orioles because you might face them in the division series.
Yeah.
Uh, so like the Yankees will probably, and if the Yankees do win, I believe their magic number, I believe they clinch a first round bye. Magic number to clinch tops in the AL is down to like 2 or 3. The only team that could supplant them would be the Guardians. Guardians have clinched division first round bye. Astros have the 3. The Dodgers, the Orioles are at least in the playoffs. I think the last two teams are going to be Kansas City and Detroit. Right now they are
Okay.
tied and they both have a 2 game lead over Minnesota.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so Minnesota finishes off against Baltimore. And like if the Orioles end up losing one of these 2 games against the Yankees, they don't really have much else to play for because they're gonna be the 4 seed. They'll face whoever.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. The Detroit Tigers is a good example of it doesn't just because you sell doesn't mean that your season's over.
Yeah.
Um,
Man, oh man.
because like they found guys. Tariq Skubal has been excellent, and
Oh,
I think he's probably gonna win the Cy Young.
yeah. I'm
Um,
conceding that now. He had a great start. I said if he didn't have a couple of, if he had a couple of off starts, Class A kept going. But no, he's gonna be the Cy Young. Absolutely.
yeah, and I think because everyone's focusing on the Tigers, which is great. The Tigers have had a great story, but don't overlook Kansas City.
Yeah.
I know they've been awful, but remember they lost over 100 games last year, and
Yeah.
here they are in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
now, you had said you think the Yankees are the World Series or the team out of the they finished off against I didn't realize that the Royals faced the Braves the
They've,
last week.
no, that is a weird series
That's
to
a
end the
weird
year,
matchup.
right? The Royals and the
Um,
Braves. Yeah.
so you say the Yankees are
Yeah.
the favorites out of the East. Like they have the depth in the pitching. If Clay Holmes can keep his act together, their bullpen's pretty good. Um, and that lineup, especially like Gleyber Torres is batting three. He had uh, awful base running blunder last night, but he's
I
batting
saw that.
388 since being
Yeah. Yeah.
garbage. Um, but he's batting 388 since being put in the leadoff spot. Obviously, Soto and Judge are doing their thing. So like they have a deep lineup. They have speed at the right spots. They have guys that can also pinch run, defensive replacement, and all. Um, but the other team I would watch out for, and I'm hoping it ends up being an ALCS matchup. That means that they beat the Astros. Is the Guardians. The
Oh,
Guardians have an excellent bullpen. They
yeah.
have a good rotation, and they also have like good contact type of hitters. So,
Yeah.
uh, but Kansas City will be a great story. Detroit would be a great story. More than likely, you're looking at a matchup. I believe right now it would be Baltimore at Detroit or Detroit at Baltimore, and then Kansas City at the Astros if the
Mm,
season were to end today. So
that'll be
it'll be
fun.
interesting.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see these two teams in. I agree. I don't know what happened to the Twins, how they fell off. The Twins were leading the wild card for a long time, and
Yeah.
they've fallen boy oh boy, they're gonna be kicking themselves. I'll give you my quick rundown on the National League. The Mets have to get past this whole thing with the Braves. And again, I think this team is different from the one that won 101 games a few years ago because they were starting to falter before they got to Atlanta. And then Atlanta swept them that last week. But this goes back to 98 and 99, where, we go to Atlanta and the schedule is set up perfectly where we control our own destiny. So I'm not panicking that they lost last night. It's just that they didn't look good at all. There was no rally. The only run was a home run by Vientos, who's had a great year. Um, and Severino, who's been good all year, wasn't last night. And the Braves made just some unbelievable plays in the field. And the first game, I will say, felt like some of these other series that I've lived through. But again, we don't know with the rain. I mean, it's terrible storm going through Florida first, and then it's going to hit there. So it hasn't been postponed tonight yet, but I think there's almost a zero chance they play on Thursday. And then that really puts a kink into, because let's say they're still tied. Let's say the Mets win tonight and tomorrow's rained out, then they're still tied for the season series. So if they end up tied, they've got to play at least that one game. So I think it's going to be interesting. And when you're going against Chris Sale, who's been almost unhittable all year, you got to win that first game. But now that all the pressure's on the Mets tonight. I don't know if you know this, Lindor was on the on deck circle. He was going to pinch hit, in the ninth inning, but he never got up because uh, Iglesias, who's just been outstanding. He's one of those closers we don't talk about. I mean, this guy, since he went to the Braves, has been lights out. Um, I think he went 3 months without giving up a run. He's just been great, but he shut the Mets down 1-2-3 last night. Um, and so we'll see. I mean, hopefully they get the game in tonight and the Mets win and make it interesting. I know they were in the driver's seat with a 2-game lead, but that 2-game lead now is a 1-game lead. The team I'd be really worried about is the Diamondbacks. I'm not sure what is going on with them. They've lost the first two of this series with the Giants, and they all of a sudden, find themselves in the number two spot behind the Mets, or number three spot behind the Mets. So the Diamondbacks is the team I'd be worried about. Now, if they tie with the Mets have the tiebreaker because they beat them in the season series. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, if I'm making a prediction, right? I'm saying, of course, I think the Dodgers will hold on. So I think it'll be the Padres, Mets, and Diamondbacks. But um, who knows? This is so much fun. This is so much fun. You know who this last week has not been fun for? CJ Abrams. I just when you texted me that story, I was like, wait a minute, I saw the headline. Did he get hurt? They sent him to the minor league complex or something like that. And then I'm like reading the story, and then you see Dave Martinez almost in tears because he had to tell him. What was your take on CJ Abrams, who's their best player, been their best player all year, an all-star, budding star, but he stayed out until 8 o'clock in the morning on a day. Now that couldn't have been. I'm going to tell you David Sampson's take in a second, but I'll say this: there's no way that could have been the first time that happened. What was your take when you read this?
Yeah, it's I remember reading a couple people saying, "Oh, well, like uh he's gambling in a casino and that's not okay, but like an interpreter can bet on baseball for a guy and it could be okay."
Yeah.
But um but
The
also like
story's
CJ
really
Abrams is
bad.
still like
Yeah.
a he's a significant player on a team there.
Yeah.
Like you said, he's probably the face of the franchise right now. I don't know if they really have one, but um yeah, it's tough. And I feel like it just is an example of someone that needs a little bit more accountability. Because if you're staying at a casino till 8 o'clock in the morning, something is wrong. Um, I would see people when I worked at the credit union who would come in, and their accounts would allow it. They had $0 in their account. They would go to the ATM, take out $500, and spend that money at the casino.
Yeah.
Or their account would be negative, and they would be like, "Why is my account negative?" And I look, and they have transactions at a casino ATM. Like, to an extent, like, okay, I'm not a gambler. I don't think gambling's okay. I feel like it's a way for people to lose money.
Hmm.
Um, but like if someone does that, that's totally on them, but it has to be responsible. And if you're gambling until 8 o'clock in the morning when you have to be at work
It's crazy.
by like what 11, something's going wrong.
Yeah.
And it just sounds like he needs more accountability. And I hope this is a good wake up call for him because
Yeah.
you don't want him to be in a situation where he's out of money, where he's doing something illegal so that he can satiate his gambling. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's weird because also you could have easily made this less of a story by just saying we're going to handle this in the off season, but yet you DFA'd him or not. I guess not DFA. You optioned him
Yeah.
like a week before the season's done.
How humiliating must that have been for him? So I agree with you. And hopefully they're doing this, but at least publicly, where's the help for him? This couldn't have been the first time. Here's with David Samson, who's obviously 18 years as a team president. Um, he said, think about this. When was the last time you saw that either a football player, a basketball player, or a baseball player was suspended for breaking curfew?
Uh,
He said teams have it. He said nobody cares about that anymore. He said as long as you show up and do your thing, you know. Um, trouble is that and he it's funny on his podcast, he names names. Hanley Ramirez had broke it. You remember Hanley Ramirez, was an excellent player, got old fast. One of those guys that got old fast, but he was notorious for breaking it. So Samson used to tell him, I'm gonna check on you, and he said there were times where he knocked on his door at 1 o'clock in the morning and he came to the door bleary-eyed in his pajamas and he was in his hotel room. Um, so I think that while you can let adults be adults, there's a lot of very young kids. And again, we start to think about put it in perspective. You and I can't imagine the amount of money that they have, but there's also a lot of free time. So I do think that teams over the years have really loosened curfew rules. Back when I was young, I know they had roommates, so they didn't have their hotel room to themselves. They had somebody else, with them that held them accountable and stuff like that. And the only time you used to hear about breaking curfew was like during Super Bowl week. You don't even hear about that anymore, So I think that Abrams, if he has a gambling problem, he needs to get help. If he has just a partying problem, um, I would I would give him one name that he can look at, and that would be John Morant. Different sport, right? Well, where did that get him? All of the partying, going out to strip clubs, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. There's just you got to show up for work. You can't show up. He said that. He said that Hanley. He was either talking about him or Cabrera. I think he was talking about Hanley. He had to tell him, listen, it at least don't be so obvious. You can't show up to the game today with the same clothes you had on when you left the night before. So it was just a weird story. Hopefully they're getting him help or he's getting some help if he needs it. Maybe he just, maybe this is the wake up call that he needed because you haven't heard anything from CJ Abrams. I'm sure he's embarrassed as all heck. David Bell got fired as the manager of the Reds, and I didn't think I was a big surprise. I thought the Reds severely underachieved this year. I thought they'd take that next step. They were close to making the playoffs last year. I'm sure they made the play. I think it was the COVID season when they made the playoffs. A few years ago. I think Bell has been a good manager for them, but they just seem to stay pretty stagnant. What were your thoughts when you heard David Bell got fired?
I kind of like with Abrams, like you couldn't let him go until the end of the
I know.
year.
Just wait. You can't wait one more week. I mean, come on. Um,
It's like it's not like you're gonna hire someone at the end of the year anyway. And like he's been there a minute now.
6 years. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
so I don't know. But it does kind of seem like, yeah, they were, especially in a division that wasn't that good,
Yeah.
they were supposed to be the team that takes the next step. Like people want to see Ellie De La Cruz steal bases in the postseason.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
now that Shohei Ohtani is going to be in the postseason. Well, if they end up in a wild card game and don't win a game, that's going to be
That'd
very
be really
anticlimactic. But
bad. Yeah. Yeah. That'd be
yeah,
really bad. Um, we hate to talk negative, but there's going to be other managers that get fired now. I think after Sunday, um, my guess of who's next is Skip Schumacher, but I don't think that's because he's a bad manager. I think he'll get a job in a second. I likened him when Joe Girardi was manager of the Marlins, and they let him go because, he yelled at the owner and him and the owner didn't get along. I think because you have the new GM there, the new GM made it clear to him supposedly that I'm going to go in another direction at the end of the year. You could stay this year, but and you should because you're getting paid. I'm not going to fire you. So he did stay this year. They had an awful year, the Marlins. I think they had their 100th loss the other night. Um, but I think somebody will hire him pretty quickly. In fact, he'd probably be a good manager for the Reds. Um, who else do you think is next?
I don't know. I'll throw out a few teams here. I don't think he'll get fired, but I think he'll start to get hot. Alex Cora. I think they overachieved, but they
Huh.
still they'd be
Yeah,
like barely over 500.
right.
Um,
Yeah.
the one that probably is a little surprising that is still there is Bud Black with Colorado. I mean,
Huh.
they're
Yeah.
60 and 97, but also like they don't have a good team. Charlie Blackman's also retiring too. I
Yeah, I
don't know if
saw
you saw
that.
that.
Excellent, excellent player. Um,
Um,
that's interesting with Bud Black. Yeah, yeah. They're stuck with him. They have stuck with him for a few years now. But he was a good manager. Who was he with the Padres before? He had some success as a manager, if I remember right. Um,
yeah.
but I mean, I think when you're on that rebuild, maybe they think he's the right guy to mentor these young players. Um, Now the Cardinals don't normally fire Matt. They have more in recent years. And I know they really like Marmel, but I thought the Cardinals have really underachieved as well. So I'm wondering how hot his seat is. Do you think he'll go in St. Louis?
I think there's a shot.
Yeah.
Unlike some of these other teams, they would wait until the season's over. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
we'd
Cardinals
find
have
out
always.
Monday.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why the Reds did that. And they're saying Grady Sizemore will probably get the full-time job with the White Sox. And which I think, I mean, you can't judge him on the month or so that he's been, you know.
And there's nothing to go but up. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
you can't have a worse record, literally, in the
Exactly.
history of
There's no way
baseball.
you're gonna lose more games than you did this year. I mean, so I had that as our last thing, and then we'll go to inspiration real quick. Is that what a historic season this has been? With that, unfortunately, I mean, I know they won last night, right? They beat the Angels last night,
Yeah.
but they're gonna lose one of these games and break the record. I think. I mean, I can't see them winning five in a row, but unfortunately, but the Shohei Ohtani thing making his own club. People say he joined the 50-50 club. No, he didn't. He made his own club. There's nobody in that club. I mean, but I mean, it's going to be hard to see that again because when he starts pitching, he's not going to be running like, that's why I told you, I said, I didn't even know he was a base stealer because he didn't steal that many bases because he was pitching. Um, but I mean, I don't know who's out there that could do what he just did. Maybe Ronald Acuna. I mean, he had 40, and he had 60 something stolen bases and he had 40 home runs. Maybe him, but he's had these leg injuries. I don't know, man. What do you think?
He really is like a person of his own.
Yeah,
Because like
it really is.
he's like, well, I hurt my elbow, so I'm just gonna focus on hitting, and then just goes off to have a 50-50 year.
Ah,
And
amazing.
and also like we referenced it before, all of the controversy at the beginning of the year. And yet here he is, like 50-50.
Yeah.
Um, I'll ask this quick question for you. Well, so I had it. I don't know if we'll have time to get fully into it. Um, I think both the Cy Young and the MVP voting is pretty much set. Like I would be surprised if
Yeah.
there's much change.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna read off the two Cy Young probables here. They both lead their respective leagues in wins, ERA, and strikeouts, and that hasn't happened since 2011. Um, but okay, Chris Sale, 18-3, 2.38 ERA. Tariq Skubal, 18-4, 2.39 ERA.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Hits allowed, Chris Sale, 141, Skubal, 142.
Wow.
Walks, Sale 39, Skubal 35. Strikeouts, Sale 225, Skubal 228. Uh, they have a lot of similar numbers.
They
If
sure
they were in
do.
the same league, it would be such an interesting conversation of who you would pick.
It really would be. I mean, you'd almost have to, and there's only been one time, right, in history, but you'd almost have to have them both. Wow, I didn't realize they were that close.
Yeah.
They've both had amazing years. There's no conversation anymore with Shohei and Lindor, especially since Lindor got hurt. But 50-50 to me sealed it anyway. Um, and if somehow the Mets don't make the playoffs, then you definitely have to write it off. But Shohei's going to win the MVP. Judge is going to win the MVP. But I I got to tell you, man, there's some other guys having some great years. We talked about them with Bobby Witt. Santander, I think hit his 40th homer last night, 100 RBIs. Um, I told you, Ozuna has had a monster year. He hit his 40th against the Mets last night. He's got well over 100 RBIs. I mean, there's some other guys that in any other year that could have won it. I think Witt would have probably won it. Araz, just having a spectacular year too. You don't hear a sniff for him. There's no way he's gonna. win it. But he's had like a Rod Carew, George Brett type year. And those guys won MVPs when they had those type of years. Anyway, so much to talk about next week. But you ready to get to some inspiration?
Yeah.
All right, I'll be really quick. Jason Brown, I'm gonna be looking a different way here on the screen. Jason Brown was a star center in the NFL with the Rams. Now, this goes back a little bit because he was with the St. Louis Rams. But I just read about him this week. I do remember him, but I didn't know about this. I'm just going to read it real quick the beginning of this article, and I won't read the rest of the article. But he wrote a book called Trading Your Plans for a Life That Matters. And the book is called Centered. It's by Jason Brown and centered because he was a center. But um, sometimes when Jason Brown gives motivational talks at schools, students tell him he's crazy. Here's why. The former NFL offensive lineman walked away from football in 2012 to start First Fruits Farm in North Carolina, not far from where his grandfather was a farmer. At the time, he had just come out of a contract with the St. Louis Rams that made him the highest paid center in the game. He moved his family from a mansion to an old farmhouse, and he gave up material wealth to go into a hard industry he knew very little about. But he ultimately found happiness growing food. Since his first harvest in 2014, his farm has given away hundreds of thousands of pounds of food to those in need. So, in case you don't catch that, he has gone from an NFL lineman, and I think he made totally 27 or 28 million in his career, nothing to sneeze at, to moving from where he was at to buying a farm. And by the way, he had at the time eight small kids, him and his wife. They moved to a farm and he just felt compelled to live a life with more purpose. If you read the article and you go in a little bit more, because his brother served in Afghanistan and his grandfather was a farmer, but his grandfather's legacy was that he used to help anyone who needed food just come and get. So he gives away everything that he farms. So he's still kind of living off of his, football profits. He gets grants and stuff like that. But his sole purpose for farming is so that he can give away food to people that need it. So Jason Brown, I think, is an unbelievable story, one that's kind of flown under the radar for a long time. But Jason Brown, definitely my inspiration this week.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't have much else to add there.
Yeah.
Um, but well, so I wanted to talk this week about Malik Neighbors. No, not Malik Neighbors. Wow. Malik Willis. Uh, wrong Malik there. Obviously getting a big opportunity to start for the Green Bay Packers. And he was interviewed after the game, and I don't know if you know this, he actually went to Liberty University,
Yes.
very
Yeah.
very like well-known Christian, and also a well-known Christian university. So um he was asked, like, how do you feel about it? He's like, I just want to give all glory to God. And then he was also asked about, like, you were always kind of overlooked. And he said, like, I just want to try to make the most of any opportunity I'm out here, not just so that I can play. I'm butchering exactly what he said, but not just so that he can play, but also so that he can make God's name famous. So um, I love it. I feel like we see it a lot more in sports now, people being very more open about their
Yeah.
faith.
Definitely.
And we're seeing, like, we saw like a small revival happening at Ohio State. And I've heard of a couple of other campuses kind of getting something similar. So
Yeah.
I don't know, God's on the move somewhere there.
Oh, no doubt. And Liberty University, it's hard to imagine that they produce NFL players, but they do every once in a while. And he's the guy probably that the Dolphins should call the Packers about when Jordan Love comes back, because he obviously showed that he's pretty good, So um wow, I love that story. That's great. That is awesome. I didn't catch that he said that. So that's great. I knew he was from Liberty, but I didn't catch that he said that. That's awesome. Awesome. All right, man. Next week this time we're gonna be in the baseball playoffs. We'll have 4 weeks of the NBA under our belt, and we could probably start talking some NBA as that'll be right around the corner. And, we got the bad word this week that Mitchell Robinson is not going to be ready to play till January. So Jericho Sims, here we come. Come on, and Precious, but Precious can't play a lot at center. He can play some at center, but
we got the power of college roommates.
Yeah,
Villanova 4 doing it. So
that's all right. We're still going to get off to a good start. All right, lots to do then next week. Kenny, take us home.
All right, this is Kenny Squared N.
Kenny.
With Sports on the Positive Tip. We will see you next week.